Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and today we are going to be reviewing a transformer that doesn't transform, because I've recently picked up this, which is the Soundwave robot enhanced design version from the Transformers Generation Wave. Now, I do quite enjoy transformers that don't transform. In fact, I'm a big fan of these, which are the Action Masters. Here we have a tiny little Action Master version of Soundwave. He was released in the sort of late 80s and is the more sort of G.I. Joe version of the Transformers. He doesn't transform at all, but he's quite a poseable little figure, and I really do like these, and I've been collecting them for quite a while now. And then a few years back I also got into the Revoltech versions of Transformers. Here is an Optimus Prime, and he's a really poseable figure. He's got all sorts of joints, so you can really pose him, you can swap his hands out. He's just a lovely little figure, but again, he doesn't transform. So when I saw they were making these, I thought I would grab myself one, but as with all Transformers, the price on them tends to be a bit high, so I sort of ummed and ahed. And then recently, when I went to visit the entertainer, I saw they'd all been reduced to £15, so I grabbed myself a Soundwave. Today we're going to open it up and see what he's like. So here we have the robot enhanced design version of Soundwave. As I say, these were on sale recently, so for £15 I couldn't leave him behind. They're fairly large looking figures. I haven't actually measured it yet, but it looks to be a sort of like 20 or so centimetres tall, and the packaging actually makes them look pretty cool. We've got Soundwave in here. His head's at a little bit of a funny angle, but I think that's just sort of bad packing. You get the figure itself and then a few accessories on the side. You can see we get a couple of alternative hands in different poses for holding the gun, which you can see here. And we also get a little version of Laserbeak. The rest of the packaging of these figures I find pretty unremarkable. It's a fairly nice image of Soundwave on the front, but the rest just seems a little bit on the plain side. When we turn it over, again you see a picture of Soundwave, at this time pressing the eject button, so that's what one of the hands is for, so you can make it look like he's pressing the eject button, and it shows a few of the different things that you can do with him. The bottom of it just contains legal text in various different languages. That's very common for European releases of these figures. They tend to put every single language you can get on the back, so it's very limited information. But yeah, it's just a bit of an underwhelming box. So what I really want to do is get this opened up, and we'll see what the figure is actually like. From the outside he looks pretty cool, but sometimes with Transformers the production and the plastic that they've used does let them down. So let's get this guy out, see what he looks like. And here he is straight out of the box, and I have to say immediately I'm already a little disappointed, but we'll see if that changes as we go through the review. He feels pretty floppy. As you can see here, his legs are incredibly floppy. They don't actually want to stay in any sort of position, and the plastic used is fairly sort of cheap feeling. But yeah, as I say, let's sort of do a proper review, and we'll see if that gets better once we go through everything. So what do you get? Well, you get the figure, and this is a non-transforming figure, but he is very poseable. You can see we've got lots of joints everywhere, so we can actually move his arms around into sort of all sorts of positions. The same with his legs, he can rotate them, and he's got double knee joints, so you can move the knees in a sort of couple of sort of different positions. His feet are a little bit restricted in what they can do. There is a ball joint there, but because of the back panel on his leg, you're sort of limited in what you can do with that, but it does move pretty freely. We then have this little tape mechanism as well, which does open, but only sort of loosely. You have to press that button and it just slightly pushes that open, but in fact that door just falls open anyway. This little button doesn't feel like it locks in any sort of position. In fact, it rattles. And I'm not sure whether this is broken or if this is sort of how it's supposed to be. So yeah, I'm intrigued on that one, but you can open this, and when we open that you can pull that down, and then we have a tiny little version of Laserbeak, which we can just drop in there. It doesn't actually fit in the door, it just fits on the sort of main part of Soundwave, and then you close it again, and again the door just opens on its own. So a little bit annoying on that, and as I showed you, the legs were sort of fairly loose. Overall the figure is sort of quite nicely designed. It's got a backpack which I think you can remove. We just sort of pull that off. It's got his shoulder mounted gun, which is loosely held in place. In fact, this does keep falling off as well because it's so loose. You know, the figure itself looks pretty cool. It just feels cheap, and as I showed, a little bit on the loose side. We do have a couple of alternate hands as well here, so we should be able to pull this hand off. Just pull it out the socket, and then we can pop that alternate hand in like so, which is fairly easy to do. And then we can put his blaster in that hand. Let's see if that actually fits in. yeah, it doesn't fit in too bad, and you can pose it with that in place, but again, the elbow joint there is a little bit on the loose side, so it doesn't actually want to stay particularly in place. And I think that's the general problem with this figure. It's all just a bit loose and floppy. If you compare it to the Revoltech one, oops, there you go, poor Soundwave, didn't mean to kick you in the back there, but if you compare it to the Revoltech one, this figure you can pose in so many different ways, and the joints are really stiff, so that when you move the leg or whatever to the position, it stays in that position. You can hear it clicking. It's just a really sturdily built figure made out of really top sort of quality plastic. This, on the other hand, although you can pose it, nothing is going to stay where it is. So if you wanted him to stand on one foot and do that, I think you'd have a lot of trouble. Yeah, as you can see, you won't be able to actually do that because everything is just a bit on the floppy side. And that seems to be the general problem with all modern Transformers. Every time I pick up a modern Transformer, it just sort of lacks in quality. I'm not sure if there's sort of legal reasons that they can't use sort of more solid plastics. This stuff is a bit on the springy side, and because of that, whatever they do, and because of the weight of the figure, it is a fairly weighty figure, you end up with a figure that doesn't actually want to stand in any position. I think I'm going to have trouble posing this. In fact, let me try and do some posing with it, and we'll see what sort of thing we can get. A good pose is sort of one leg forwards, one leg slightly back, to make him look like he's sort of in action. You can just about do that. It's not a bad pose. Oh, bits keep falling off as always, but you can't get his arm to stay up. You can see that won't stay. If you want to put it, you've got to sort of bend it more fully. Yeah, it's an okay figure, but it really does sort of lack in overall quality. And I wish this cassette door would actually stay shut. Is that broken? Has anyone else got one of these? Is that supposed to sort of lock shut? Because I can certainly hear something rattling. If I do that, you can hear something rattling inside. You know, is this one broken? Let me know in the comments below. As a quick test, I thought I'd see if I could recreate this pose that they've got on the back of the box, and I have actually been able to do that. You can see he does pose like that, although as I showed, the front cassette door doesn't want to stay shut. That really just is falling open no matter what I do. If you pose him with his chest slightly angled forward, it just falls open. So maybe I can bend that back a bit. Yeah, there we go. If I bend his chest back a bit, we can get that to lock shut. But it really is a delicate thing to do. It's not the worst of figures. Certainly I've had far worse figures that I've sort of taken out of the box, but it's nowhere near what it should be. And I think when these were on sale originally, they were sort of £25. If I'd paid £25 for this, I would have been very disappointed. Currently, I only paid £15 for it, so I'm mildly disappointed, I have to say. And whether I actually keep it in my collection for any length of time, at the moment, I think I'll probably just put it back in the box and it will go in my loft until a few years down the line I look at it again. But for now, it's actually a pretty disappointing figure. It's just a bit cheap, and yeah, everything's so loose and floppy. It's really going to be hard to pose, and I can't see any way that I can actually modify that to tighten up those joints. It's just the way it's been designed, and the plastic that's used has made it like that. So yeah, pretty disappointing. Would I buy another of these if I saw them cheap? At the moment, I would have to say no, because I did look at the Megatron, I did look at the Optimus Prime, and they're both quite nice looking figures when you see them in the packet. But having taken Soundwave out of the box now and seen, you know, how he's constructed, how he's put together, I just think I'm going to leave those on the shelves for someone else. I know there are probably lots of Transformers collectors out there who've picked these up and are really enjoying them, but for me, it's just a bit of a letdown. Modern toys do generally seem to have an awful lot of problems, and every Transformer I've bought in the last few years, I've been very disappointed with, to the point that now I very rarely pick them up. But this one did tempt me because he does look so cool, and like this, I really do think he looks quite nice. It's just when you get to actually sort of play with it and move it around, it lets you down so quickly, so it's a real disappointment. For £15, I guess it's not so bad. If I'd paid £25 for it, as I say, I would have been very disappointed. But yeah, I think I'm just going to put this back in the box and forget about it for a little while. Maybe in a few years' time I will come back to it and think, oh, actually it's quite nice, but for the moment it's not for me. Such a disappointment when that happens. I think I'm going to have to stick to vintage toys, and I'm going to stick to playing with my Action Master version of Soundwave and also the Revoltech version of Optimus Prime, because these are just far better figures. They've lasted longer and they are much more poseable and just much more fun to play with. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of this robot enhanced designs Transformers Soundwave. I don't really think he's been enhanced. I think there's certainly some massive design issues, but I hope you've enjoyed my review anyway. If you have, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.